Hello, everybody. Oh, that was exciting. 2 days after Valentine's Day, yeah, we're all on that chocolate high. Or we're past the chocolate high and right, the no sugar doldrum. So, but yeah, so here we are. We're actually back in the narrative today. The Babylonians have they're in the middle and end of their siege on Jerusalem, which took place over about a 18, 19-month period. And so we're going to hear several different voices today. Oh, I forgot to mention Ezekiel is in there too, kind of thing. So, Jeremiah is the prophet in Jerusalem and Judah at the moment. Ezekiel's the prophet in Babylon, Babylon, because he was taken there about somewhere between 2 and 6 years earlier. And so he's getting runners back and forth with messages, but also he's hearing from God telling what's going on, and seeing visions of what's happening. So that's kind of where we're at today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. That way, tomorrow we'll be doing the surgery on Tuesday. He's got a report tomorrow. So yeah, he's got an appetite.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So we start this off in 2 Chronicles chapter 36, verse 15 and 16, and it says, "The Lord, the God of their ancestors, sent persistently to them by his messengers," that would be the prophets, "because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they kept mocking the messengers of God, despising his words, and scoffing at his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord against the people became so great that there was no remedy." So this is kind of like a summation of everything that has happened before Babylon came. So just a brief two verse summation, and then on to Jeremiah chapter 39, verse starting 3. "The word of the Lord came to Jeremiah while he was confined in the court of the guard." Remember, he was still confined, and the court of the guard is it's at the temple complex, but it's on the outer wall, the outer court kind of. "Go and say to Ebed-Melech the Cushite, thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I am going to fulfill my words against this city for evil and not for good, and they shall be accomplished in your presence on that day. But I will save you on that day, says the Lord, and you shall not be handed over to those whom you dread. For I will surely save you, and you shall not fall by the sword, but you shall have your life as a prize of war, because you have trusted in me, says the Lord." Ebed-Melech the Cushite was a foreign advisor to King Jehoiakim, who had taken, when Jeremiah wrote the scroll and sent it to the king. So, and of course, the advisors read it first, and then the king started reading, and he takes the scroll and starts ripping it up and then throwing it into the fire, and then he condemns Jeremiah to the cistern, that horrible, worse than dungeon cistern, that damp, cold, dirty thing. Ebed-Melech petitioned the Cushite. He petitioned for Jeremiah to be removed from there and placed somewhere else. And so what's happening here is, while Jeremiah is in the court of the guard, later on, he gets this message from God to say, hey, go and tell Ebed-Melech he's going to be okay. He's blessed because of what he did for you. And so that's what this is. I will surely save you. You will not fall by the sword. That's what he's saying. So Ebed-Melech is being protected and saved by God for his actions toward Jeremiah earlier. Okay?
So was Cush here in Satan, you know, this today?
Yeah, around that area, yeah. So, you see all the branches there now? So, out of 2 Kings 25 and Jeremiah 52, and in Jeremiah 39, on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine became so severe in the city that there was no food to put people away. This was a 1.5-year siege from approximately January 10, 588 to 9 July 586. Those are the dates that have been ascribed to it based on Babylonian Jewish. And then we get this breakout from 2 Kings 25, Jeremiah 39, to 7. Then a breach was made in the wall. The king with all the soldiers fled by night by the way of the gate between the two walls by the king's garden, though the Chaldeans were all around the city. Now, Nehemiah 3 says that the pool of Siloam, or that the king's garden was near the pool of Siloam. So we kind of get that idea of where it's placed. We get the idea that they would be fleeing through a wall, a hole in the wall, from Ezekiel's vision in chapter 12. So Ezekiel saw the vision of it prior to this. And so now it's happening based on that prophecy. Okay? They went in the direction of the Arabah. Don't know, don't ask. I'm assuming that means desert. So. Jeremiah 39, then all the officials of the king of Babylon came and sat in the middle gate. Nergal-Sharezer, Samgar-Nebo, Sarsekim the Rabsaris, Nergal-Sharezer the Rabmag, with all the rest of the officials of the king of Babylon. Okay. Now, we see Nergal-Sharezer twice here. Once, the first time, it's a title. The second time, it's actually a name. Okay, so keep that in mind. But Nergal-Sharezer was the king's bodyguard. Samgar-Nebo means it's the king's cupbearer. Rab means chief. So Sarsekim is a name. Rabsaris is a title. Rab means chief. Saras means unit. So chief unit. And then Nergal-Sharezer, the second time, is a name. He's the Rabmag. Well, Rab we know means chief. Mag is the same root as Magi, so he's the chief astrologer. Okay. Yeah, fun, ain't it? Moving on. But the army of the Chaldeans pursued the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. All of his army was scattered, deserting him. So the plains of Jericho, that's where the Israelites had crossed over to battle Jericho when they were originally coming out of the Exodus, the Promised Land. So what this is saying is that the chief officials, the chief Jewish officials that had fled, almost made it across the river. They were at the river, about to cross it when the Babylonians caught them. If they had crossed the river, Babylon probably would have just let them go, because that's too much work for them to try to cross without them. Okay? So they almost were there, but you know what? Almost in horseshoes and hand grenades did you? Then they captured the king and brought him up to the king of Babylon at Riblah, who passed sentence on him. Riblah seems to be a staging area for where the royal house of Babylon would stay. Kind of maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 miles away, but just kind of a staging area. So, and when it says king of Babylon, we can make assumptions that it probably wasn't king Nebuchadnezzar, but probably one of his chief generals or whatever. Although we'll see the chief general here in a few minutes. They slaughtered the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. Now, the other places add that they also, the king of Babylon, slaughtered all the nobles of Judah. Okay, so everybody that they captured was slaughtered at Riblah. Okay? Then put out the eyes of Zedekiah. They bound him in fetters and took him to Babylon. And then Jeremiah 2 adds and put him in prison until the day of his death. So remember, either last week or week before, I said, you shall see him face to face. And I told you to remember that phrase. Yes. This is what it meant by that. The last thing King Zedekiah sees are his children being killed before his eyes, and his eyes are put out. And he's taken that. Okay? So, yeah. So the last image, the last image he sees is his children being killed. And then the ninth coming before his eyes. Okay, 2 Kings 25, Jeremiah 52. In the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. So that tells us we're measuring time in Babylonian time. Whenever it mentions, if it mentions Zedekiah or a Jewish thing, we know it's Jewish time. If it mentions Nebuchadnezzar, we're calculating in Babylonian. Because they're off. The times are off a little bit, based on how we measure. Nebuzaradan, say that 5 times real fast. The captain of the bodyguard, a servant of the king of Babylon, to Jerusalem. That's who I think was at Riblah, who took care of all those other things that he was doing. So now he's coming into Jerusalem. Yes. He burned the house of the Lord, the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem. Every great house he burned down. All the army of the Chaldeans who were with the captain of the guard broke down all the walls. I added all in brackets there because Jeremiah 52 adds that word, 2 Kings 6:9. Okay, that's the only difference between those verses. The walls around Jerusalem. So it is believed, based on Babylonian records, not in here in the Bible, but it's believed in Babylonian records, that it took 3 days for that. Basically, when they conquered the city, they feasted for 2 days, and then on the 3rd day, they destroyed it. So they used up all that was left, which wasn't much, and then they destroyed it. Nebuzaradan literally means king's execution. That's what it means. Nebo, they mean they're talking about Nebuchadnezzar, the king. So Zaradan means execution. Therefore, he brought up against them the king of the Chaldeans, who this is back in 2 Chronicles 36, finishing that summation earlier, trying to put it in its proper places. Who killed their youths with the sword in the house of their sanctuary and had no compassion on young man or young woman, the aged or the feeble, he gave them all into his hands. Okay, you see the 5 brackets now? I'm going to go with the Jeremiah 52 because it's the more detailed one. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried into exile some of the poorest of the people and the rest of the people who were left in the city, and the deserters who had defected into Babylon, together with the rest of the parts. Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, left in the land of Judah some of the poor people. So he took some of the poor people, but left the worst of the worst, who owned nothing, and gave them vineyards and fields at the same time. Now, what do you think the vineyards and fields look like? They were really less. They had been under siege, but hadn't been defeated. The armies of Babylon had been camped out there, probably utilizing what resources they did have to offer. So, yeah. So things are not looking good. It's over. They've taken the rest of the people that were worth taking into exile and leaving with them. And leaving just the life there. But who did they forget? Who were we talking about earlier? So, Court of Guard. Oh, now we're at the temple here. So the bronze pillars that were in the house of the Lord, as well as the stands in the bronze sea that were in the house of the Lord, the Chaldeans broke in pieces and carried the bronze to Babylon. They took away the pots, the shovels, the snuffers, the basins, the ladles, and all the vessels of the bronze used in the temple service. The captain of the guard took away the small bowls also, the fire pans, the basins. The pots, the lampstands, the ladles, and the bowls for libation, both those of gold and those of silver. I'm reading for As for the 2 pillars, the 1C, the 12 bronze bulls that were under the stands, which King Solomon had made for the house of the Lord. The bronze of all these vessels was beyond weighing. As for the pillars, the height of one pillar was 18 cubits, its circumference was 12 cubits, it was hollow, and its thickness was 4 fingers. So, right. Yes, it is not mentioned, so, which has created all kinds of controversies and theories. Well, I say theories, hypotheses.
And why you had, the engines.
Yeah, which,
And the Western.
which, if you ever watched the TV show The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper, the Uber nerd that's on the show, his girlfriend Amy Farrah Fowler, you know, for my dollar phone. He's showing her the movie, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, for the first time. She's never seen it. She's watching it. And he says, at the very end, he asks her, "Hey, so what do you think of it?" He says, "I thought it was a pretty good movie. As long as you discount the whole plot, as long as you discount the obvious plot hole." What plot hole? Well, you didn't need Indiana Jones. What do you mean? Well, even if he wasn't in the picture, the Nazis still capture the Ark. They still take it to here, they open it up, and everybody gets destroyed anyway. So, yeah, so next time you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, look for that. Yeah, he don't even have to be in the movie for everything to still take place. So.
But it reappears with David.
With David.
Yeah.
We're long past David.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, David was the third king of Israel. We're on the 20th king, or the 19th, the 20th king
Oh,
of.
this is a period between David and.
Between the
This
Old
is-
Testament and New Testament.
This is right, you're towards the end of the Old
My
Testament.
brain just kicked in.
It's okay. So the reason they give the dimensions and things for the pillars is because, they were plated with gold, and so it kind of gives you an idea of how well, how much worth the gold and the bronze and everything around would have been. I didn't look any of that up. It was way too much. By this point, my mind was going nuts trying to break all this down. So I didn't look any of those values up, okay?
Well, it says it was installed in the night in the house of the woods and mountains at a time of great wealth.
Correct. And I also think the writer may have put this in here to confirm that it was the same thing as when it was original. That we're not talking about different pillars. Which y'all remember the names of the pillars? No, Boaz was one of them. Jachin was the other. One meant foundation, the other meant protection. Together, they mean stability. Okay? By the way, I learned that from Freemasonry. But no, I've done this. Yeah, so one was named Boaz, one was named Jacob. Named their pillars. The sea that it talks about, the great sea or the one sea, that was the big giant bowl that the priests would bathe themselves in, right outside the temple. Because they had to be purified before they entered.
And they called it the sea.
They called it the Great Sea, and it has caused some controversy because it gives the amount of how big it was and how much water it held, and when you do the math, it doesn't add up to pi.
Oh.
So people say, well, they didn't know how to do math. Well, it came to 3, and pi is 3.14. I'm going, okay, close enough. That's how I resolved it. So, up on it, this is talking about the one pillar. Up on it was a capital of bronze. The height of the capital was 5 cubits. Lattice work in pomegranates, all of bronze, encircled the top of the capital. And the second pillar had the same with pomegranates. There were 96 pomegranates on the sides. All the pomegranates encircled the lattice work, number 1. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. Pomegranates were the sign of love. In this case, being on the temple, it would have been the all-encompassing love of God. Keep in mind, Solomon is believed to have written the Song of Solomon, with the love of to have his own, its own ideas to the sign. Chronicles 36 on the 25. And you'll notice that their comparisons are to two different books too. So the Second Chronicles connection goes to First Esdras. The Second Kings connection goes to Jeremiah 52. So
Then the art that were found.
no, Ark was never heard of again after, say, Josiah.
Oh,
So 3 or 4 kings prior to this, the ark was never mentioned. All the vessels of the house of God, large and small, and the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king and of his officials, all these he brought to Babylon. The captain of the guard took, so who's the captain of the guard? That was Zeradan. Took the chief priest Sariah, the second priest Zephaniah, and the 3 guardians of the threshold. From the city, he took an officer who had been in command of the soldiers and 5 men of the king's council who were found in the city. These are probably, because everybody else had been captured by this point. These are probably the temple guards, because the temple had its own military power. Okay, they had their own guard. So, again, remember, if this is the chief priest Sariah, the second priest Zephaniah, the 3 guardians of the threshold, that would be the entrance probably to the temple. And an officer in command of the soldiers, okay, all them, and 5 men of the king's council, but it doesn't mention who? Jeremiah. The secretary who was the commander of the army, who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took them and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. Okay, that's a staging area. The king of Babylon struck them down and put them to death at Riblah in the land of Hamath. So Judah went into exile out of its land. So they've had 860 years of existence, give or take, and this is around 590 years before. This happened 587, 586, depending on how you report it. The word struck there, the king of Babylon struck them down, is unk. Can you say unk? And it means wound, hurt, torture, or flog. Okay? It does not mean kill, although then it says, and put them to death. So he tortured them and then he killed them. He appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, as governor over the people who remained in the land of Judah, whom King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had left. Gedaliah is a good guy. He's one of the good guys. He supported Jeremiah. Okay? King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon gave command concerning Jeremiah to Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, saying, take him, look after him well, and do him no harm, but deal with him as he may ask you. So Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, Nebuchadnezzar, the Rabsaris, Nergal-Sharezer, the Rabmag, and all the chief officers of the king of Babylon sent and took Jeremiah from the court of the guard. Now Gedaliah had a reputation of being generous. That's from Josephus, 600 years later. Okay, so take that as at face value, I guess. The word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah from the Lord after Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had let him go from Ramah, when he took him bound in fetters along with all the captains of Jerusalem and Judah who were being made about Babylon. So we get this interesting tidbit. Jeremiah wasn't mentioned in those others. He wasn't captured when the temple fell because he was taken along with the bigger group of the poor, and, everybody that was left, but nobody knew who he was till now. The captain of the guard took Jeremiah and said to him, the Lord your God threatened this place with this disaster, and now the Lord has brought it about and has done as he said, because all of you sinned against the Lord and did not obey his voice. Interesting that the king of the Babylon, or the representative of the king of Babylon, would say this, but remember who's writing this is, whoever is writing this part of Jeremiah. And also, there's, a couple of conjectures. Ezekiel probably knew Jeremiah because he was alive when Jeremiah was. So Ezekiel would have been part of the priestly group So he would have been near the temple when Jeremiah would come and make a proclamation. So he knew, probably knew Jeremiah. So he may have been able to put in a good word or say, hey, there's a man of God there. But also remember that all the prophets up to this point have said that Babylon would be the vessel by which God visited them. So you have to keep that in mind, the context of it. Therefore, this thing has come upon you. Now, look, I have just released you today from the fetters on your hand. If you wish to come with me to Babylon, come, and I will take good care of you. But if you do not wish to come with me to Babylon, you need not come. See, the whole land is before you. Go wherever you think is good and right to go. So, Nebuzaradan is telling Jeremiah, look, you come with me to Babylon, based on what I've heard, you're going to be taken well care of. I'll make sure of it. But if you want to stay, you can stay. Back, you can go anywhere you want. You're free. What right? What option? If you remain, then return to Gedaliah of Ahikam, the son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, whom the king of Babylon appointed governor of the town of Judah, and stay with him among the people, or go wherever you think it right to go. So the captain of the guard gave him an allowance of food and a present. Go. The present was probably either more than likely some kind of clothing or something. So basically he says you can do anything you want, you can go anywhere you want, but if you choose to stay, you're gonna have to follow the rules of the guy we put in place here as the governor. Okay? That would be Gedaliah. They entrusted him to Gedaliah, so now you see what his choice was. The son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, that he brought home, so he stayed with his own people. This is the number of the people whom Nebuchadrezzar took into exile. In the 7th year, 3,023 Judeans. In the 18th year of Nebuchadrezzar, he took into exile from Jerusalem 332 persons. So he started taking people during the original siege, taking people that might have been outside the wall. So it was done in 3 stages. The siege was also done. So 18th year of Nebuchadrezzar, he took into exile from Jerusalem 332. In the 23rd year of Nebuchadrezzar, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took into exile with 745. All the persons were 4,600. Now, this probably would have been just the count of adult males, because women were considered property, children were not counted. Okay? And they became servants to him and his sons until the establishment of the kingdom of Persia, that would be Cyrus and Darius, to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had made up for its Sabbaths. All the days that it lay desolate kept Sabbath. So they were released in 539 BC. You add that up, that does not come to 70. Okay? But there is a way to resolve that using Bush's fuzzy name. Okay? There were 490 years of Sabbaths. That's how they did this. Okay, so 490 years that they didn't follow the Sabbath the way they were supposed to. Well, that would equate to 70 weeks of years of Sabbaths, or 70 years, okay, that they had to fulfill. Some theologians will resolve it by saying, well, the last 3 or 4 kings of Judah were puppet kings to Nineveh. And so when you put those in there, guess what that adds up to? So, so next week, we're in the book of Lamentation. And we talk about the deserted city, God's warnings fulfilled, God's steadfast love endures forever. So, Lamentations is believed to have been written by Jeremiah. And so what it is, it's a series of 5 prayers or hymns of lament that he is describing what he's seeing and how he's feeling while he's in this desert. The people, he's with his people, the poorest of the poor, who have nothing. Everything's been destroyed. Everything of value has been carted off. All their friends, their neighbors, their family, it's all gone. So keep in mind, Lamentations is a sad book. But with going into a new book in the Bible, what does that mean? We have to watch it. We have to do it.
Do you think that there is document that says what has to be done.
Yes,
It's there in the town.
well, I think God has it. I think God has it. The book of life. No. I am one of those that, I might get criticized for it, that's fine, but I'm confident in what I do. In Revelation, it talks about, during the judgments at the end times. And the judge opened the book of life, and he opened other books. Well, those other books, I believe, are books of works. And the books of works, even though we get into heaven based on the book of life, our position in heaven is based on the book of works. Are there? Where does it say that? And I believe the book of works is those determine which crown.
I'm wondering if it was
Very possible. Now, there is a fresco. There is a fresco in Babylon that has been uncovered that seems to show the ark being carried off, but it's never talked about, ever. And so it's believed that it's probably not the ark, but it is the bier by which all the gold and all the ornamental stuff is carried out, as opposed to the ark. And reason being is it doesn't, we get all these images of the ark with the Bema seat having the two cherubim that cover. We don't really see that on the fresco. We don't see those angels. And so it kind of, some could say, well, they broke those off. Gold saw. So it could have broken, who knows? But I think the best theory, there's a lot of theories as to what happened to the ark. One theory certainly is that it was just destroyed to anybody else. Another theory out there is that I mentioned Freemasons earlier. So, but they believe that some of their former Masons had stored that part. Because some of that was wrong, but were considered. The Knights Templar were considered the protectors of all that. They were Masons. That's part of the Mason.
Friend,
Go ahead.
they were just so much later than all this.
Correct.
I mean, they didn't, the Crusades and all.
Well, but they believe, I've been reading this book called The Hierarchy, and which has to do with Freemasons. They go into a lot of depth trying to follow back as far as they can the tradition from this. They think they traced it back all the way to Solomon, Solomon's temple, but they don't know that for certain. They, according to them, have surely, they're confident, but I argue their conclusions, because there's a lot of stuff.
They never talked about it.
Well, according to their book, they have certainly or absolutely traced back the Masons to Zerubbabel's temple, which is after the exile, the temple that was built after the exile. So, again, I question their conclusion. I think their arguments have a lot of flaws, but that's just me. Now, I think the best theory, if it's true, is that we get a lot of things that people fled to Egypt and things like this during several of the last kings. And it kind of makes sense to me because it's not mentioned. But the absence of information doesn't mean that's why, okay? In the grand scheme of evidence. So I believe that if it was taken away, I'm kind of like, I mean, that it was probably destroyed because it didn't mean anything to anybody. That if it was taken away, that it could actually be held in the future. The top of the future. Because they were very repentant. They did hard that took a lot of people assigned to life. It took 5, 6, or 7 or 8 years after they taken over the position. It should be reserved. Hard of Ark of the Covenant that they would struck down with all. So if it was taken away, I think that's the best theory. But I don't think it's the best theory over. But y'all remember what the Ark held?
It held the
The Ten Commandments, the tablets. The second copy of that was
something
a bowl of manna that they got involved in. Aaron's rock, the mud, Aaron's budding rock, the rock is budding. And that's significant because, if y'all remember the story of Aaron's rod, all of the tribes were told to bring their chief's rod, and the one that budded would be the priest of the tribe. They would be in charge of it. They would be in charge of everything worshipful. And Aaron's rod is. And of course, he would have been the head of the Kenites, which.
And he was a.
Anybody have any other questions or concerns? That was very interesting. Like I said, we're done. The siege is over. So at this point, we're going to do this for a couple more weeks. Get into well, next week will be in Lamentation, probably Lamentation the week after. Maybe get into this apocalypse of hope. Just to kind of buy time, because I don't want to get into the narrative anymore, because we're coming to the end of the time. We were skipping ahead 54 years. Okay.
So this siege in 586, there was the other siege in what, 70 AD or something like that. One of them was counted in the Pentecost. This was in 70 AD.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What did you say?
You know, there's this siege, and there's one, what, 70 AD that Jesus
Well,
talks about.
70 AD was the destruction of Jerusalem. That was the final destruction. The temple's never been rebuilt since.
But one of them, I thought this was cannibalization to the place because the people were going to do it.
It probably was this, because 70 AD, the Romans were in charge. Titus, the Roman general Titus destroyed all that. The Jews were already being displaced. They were being run out of Rome, out of really all of Rome.
I was like, generally, so they were cut off from water that I read that they were actually headed to eat.
Yeah, it was probably the Babylonian. Of course, the Assyrian one wasn't very good either, but the Assyrians, they killed without mercy. The Babylonians took exiles. The Assyrians, they would take people in, if they did take people, they dispersed them among other congregations, so they had no identity, no power, no resource whatsoever. Okay. Yeah, I found this one really. So, okay, so I'm gonna go and end it there. Y'all have a good day.
You-
I was forgetting something.